You're making sales on Amazon, but are you making profit? In this video, we're breaking down the top 5 ways Amazon sellers are losing profit, including a hack that took one brand from spending $13,000 a month in fees to zero. Make sure you stay tuned till the end so you don't miss it. I am super excited today. We have Selman, the co-founder of Profit Cyclops, which is an Amazon profit tool. We're here to talk about how to not waste money when you're selling on Amazon. So welcome. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for hosting me tonight.
Yeah, so before we dig into this and we go into the top 5 ways that through all of the accounts that you're analyzing in your tool, these are the top 5 things you really see sellers wasting profits on. Before we dig into it, I'd love you to give the audience just a really quick overview of who you are and your background.
I used to be a lawyer. In around 2012-13, we started selling on Amazon with my partner. Back in the days, there didn't even used to be Amazon ads, and we just put in $1,000. After that, we just used that $1,000 and scaled up to 8 figures. We had, at the top of our peak, we had 11 brands, and then we sold them off. During our scaling, at some point, we decided like the Excel sheets were not cutting it. And then we said we need a software. And my partner, he was a software engineer, so he was just into it. We just started writing this code, just compiling some of these reports, telling us the metrics. Back then, we didn't have a lot of the listings, so we had to create those listings. And it was easier, I could say, but we still needed a software. But then during our scale, we had the brand managers, and we had to give some data to everybody so that they could find their own listings, scale their own ads. That's how we created Profit Cyclops. After we were done with being an Amazon seller, we still had the software. So we said, okay, we had used this software to scale ourselves. So let's just package this up and make it a subscription so everybody else can use it. And since the last 3 years, we have been marketing Profit Cyclops as a tool so people can also look at the profits, so they can also see what we saw during our scaling, and they can also scale the way that we did and become profitable, hopefully, in selling on Amazon.
Love it. I love that origin story because there are so many sellers. Like it's very easy to know what your sales are. Like you can go into one dashboard, one place in Amazon, and you'd be like, oh, this is my sales. But I am always constantly surprised, and I'm sure you run across this a lot, how many sellers don't know specifically what their profits are. They're like, I know what money's in the bank. I kind of see what's coming in.
Yeah.
I think I know. And
So
in this,
Amazon is especially the hardest one on this, and they became harder, I think, knowingly throughout the years. I mean, we used to be selling in all of the marketplaces, including the Europe, Canadian, Mexican. We also were selling in Walmart, Etsy, eBay, whatever you think of, we were selling in all of those. But compiling all of these sales, if you just want to look at a bare revenue figure, you don't even know if that's including the refunds or that's including any of the adjustments. If you just want to look at one figure and feel satisfied, you're not going to do good at this time. Especially in these years, it has become more and more competitive. Now that a lot more foreign sellers are joining the US marketplace, it has become much more competitive. You have to know your numbers, really know your numbers. So it's not just a revenue figure, but you have to compile. I mean, most of the customers that we speak to, they don't even just sell on Amazon. They at least sell in Walmart or some other place. You have to compile these reports, you have to compile your fees, and you have to be able to look at them in just one big picture. And especially in Amazon, there are so many fees. I think it's impossible to keep them by Excel sheets. And we join these conventions and events, and I speak with a lot of the customers. You would be amazed. We have customers that have $150 million of sales. We have a customer that has like $87 million of sales a year. And even these guys, when we spoke with them first, they did not know their profits in the true value. Like they know their sales, they think they're making a profit, but they don't even know which product is the most profitable one, because it really takes a software, just directed towards this to be able to tell.
Yeah, that is scary. I mean, especially when you're talking about like you built up to sell for an exit, like when you're looking at those evaluations, profits are something they take into account. It's almost like, it doesn't really matter what top line is, it matters what bottom line is. So you could, like you said, you have a $50 million brand losing money. That's actually not a valuable brand because you're not making
you
money.
probably know, like they talk about this EBITDA figure. We work with aggregators and also a website that sells businesses, and they bring their customers to us, and we evaluate their account because we see all the fees, we already compile them. And then after you get down to the bottom figure of what your real profit, which is the EBITDA is, then you multiply that by 2x, 3x, during the pandemic, maybe 7x, 8x, and then you get your valuation of the business. So just the revenue figure doesn't mean anything when you're selling the business or when you're trying to,
Yeah.
evaluate it.
So with that being said, I'm sure all the sellers listening in are like, okay, what are the biggest things with all of the data you see and all of the accounts? We've actually compiled the top five, all the analysis, the top five things that are wasting most Amazon sellers' money. So we're going to give those to you, which, by the way, number one is something that was recently introduced, and there's some very specific ways you might be able to crack for that. So Solomon has some hacks for us as well. So I'm super excited to dig into this one. But starting off with number five, we're going to save the best for last. The number five thing wasting sellers' money is all of the Amazon fees.
So yeah, like the number five is actually knowing the compilation of those fees. So you have to have like a P&L report. I know there are some software that do it, but most of the people don't. If you're using Excel sheets, you're never going to have a complete P&L. The last one is the Amazon fees because there are so many adjustments. There are so many things that you probably don't know that are being cut from your account. If you're getting SaaS core, if you're getting the adjustments, if you're getting the clawbacks, I could name a lot of different things. Maybe there are things that you probably haven't heard of. There are some SKUs that are more affected, there are some that are less affected, but knowing those is the most important one. For this one, I also want to mention the reimbursements. You could claim reimbursements from Amazon for your lost items when they damage it, when they lose it, if your inbound pallet is lost, if your product is damaged during shipping, or anything else. But these reimbursement windows are going down from 18 months to 2 months. I think because people are hearing more about this and they started to claim more, I think they're lowering this window. So 2 months is a really low window because you also have to think about, like, you have this inbound shipment, you're going to wait for that to close and clear. So then you can only apply for any kind of reimbursement. So that 2-month window is going to be really narrow. It's going to be starting October 23. So we have only 23 days left by the time of this recording. I think that's going to be really important. If anybody watching this is not using any reimbursement service, I recommend that they do. If they're going to be trying to claim on their own, I see a lot of the customers, they don't want to pay like that 25% fee. They want to claim on their own, but they're usually missing out a lot of the things that would probably just be, more than the fee that they would pay if they got a service. So that's, I think, the most important thing. Get a P&L, reimbursements. Don't let your money go down the drain with Amazon. I think that's the fifth most important one for today.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, it sounds like the biggest miss with this, last one is just because, like, Amazon, like, you have your FBA fee, and then you have shipments, and then, like, you have the cost to sell, and if the product gets pushed into an oversized, and, like, that changes. There's just so many things and ways for this to shift, and you not realize that, like, oh, it just went up a couple of cents, which you would think, oh, it's a couple of cents, but then, like, every single sale, that money is going out the window.
It really adds up. Yeah.
So not knowing this. So obviously, like you're saying, software really shines here. Software, I think, in any capacity shines when it comes to, like, pulling and aggregating all this information, and also, like, looking at it over time, because you can pull a report and you know what's happening right now, but you don't necessarily know what happened yesterday or the day before that. And then pulling all of those reports manually, insanely tedious, I think, in any line of work. So software databases, I really think there's a huge advantage when it comes to that.
I agree. And a few months ago, we were in the Amazon Developer Forum event in Seattle. And, backstage, when you speak with the developers, they also tell you, like, they're trying to not show you those fees. They're knowingly not letting you see all of those fees. And if you're using an Amazon program like Amazon Pricer, Amazon Profit Analysis, Amazon Business Reports, any kind of thing that Amazon owns, they knowingly only want to make you sell for a less price. Like, I spoke with a developer, I'm not going to name them, but they were in charge of developing the pricing tool inside Amazon. And he was saying, any customer that is using just the Amazon's pricing tool is just going to go down in price and never going to go up, because that's what they optimize it for. Because Amazon, inherently, they want to sell the product for less. They don't want you to make money. They want the customer to pay less. So if you're using any kind of Amazon screen or tool, they're not going to let you know what you're missing out.
Right. With any of these things that we're going to talk about, like you have to go a specific place in the account to be able to find it. And oftentimes you're having to pull like 5 different reports. Like you said, if Amazon wanted to give us like one
They could.
dashboard
They
that had
definitely could.
like they totally could. They
They
totally
could.
could do it. But like you said, they're not going to. So again, software shines here. Other than tracking fees, moving on to number 4, which is kind of a subsection of fees, really. Another place, again, I'm always surprised how sellers who are not paying attention to this until all of a sudden it really, really starts to hurt them. And that is on the refunds and the returns.
Yeah, refunds and returns are the fourth most important one. This could be both ways. First of all, the refunds are losing a lot of money. Amazon, obviously, also in their favor, they don't want any returns and refunds because they have to deal with that in the fulfillment warehouses. So they charge you back a lot of fees. They return the referral fee, but then they also hit you back with a refund management processing fee kind of fee. So when you get a refund, you're basically getting double banked for that. So I've seen customers, I speak with customers, like we do a lot of meetings with customers. I have seen customers that have 80% net profit margin because they optimized for the refunds and returns. And now their listing is scaling more than ever. And I have seen customers that have 50% return rates. They're losing a lot of money. They have no idea. They're just pushing on the gas pedal for the ads, but ads are not working right. They have a really high ACoS because the reason they have a high refund rate. You have to fix the refund rate, especially if you're a PN private label seller. If you're a reseller, again, there's nothing you can fix, but then you just drop that product. Like if there is a high returning product, you have to be able to know. And in our software, we tell the customers why the product was returned because the customer gets this little window that they put in the reason why they're returning it, and people are usually honest. So if they are just returning it because they don't like it, they usually don't put anything. But if there's something wrong with the product, really wrong, then they put it in that box. So having that, again, software, without the software, you would probably have to compile at least 2 reports to get this. You can see why the product was returned and how much it was returned. This kind of data is going to be crucial for you to just, optimize your listing because let's face it, everybody's money is limited. If you're going to purchase one SKU, you're not going to be able to purchase the other one. If you're investing in these products, you're not going to be able to invest in the other ones. So you have to optimize your money. You have to optimize your funds. And the return and refunds, I think, is going to be one of the most crucial ones that you have to look out for.
No, I 100% agree. And I have 2 anecdotal stories of like you said, this is one of those things, one, that software shines at because it's very tedious to go through and try and analyze these things manually. Do you have the data in your account? Yes. Is it easy to read, easy to find, easy to look at over time? No, not at all. And like going back to people not paying attention to things until they really, really hurt them. Like we had one brand, most times it shows up in the reviews. Like all of a sudden you'll get a whole bunch of negative reviews, which of course affects the conversion rates. Everything's terrible. Or if you're watching that,
usually too late. So if you're waiting for the reviews, you're usually too late on that.
Absolutely. And then you go through and then you look at, oh, wait, why are they doing all the returns? Oh, because they're getting used products. Wait, we didn't have Amazon take a look at the products, or they're not taking a look at the products. Or wait, this is a product that we need to have sent back to us because it has a very obvious open package. That was one thing. It was, oh, we got negative reviews. Why? Oh, because we went and looked at the returns. Oh, all the returns are saying that they got a used product. Wait, do we have that box? Like these things snowball. And if you were looking at it, paying attention how to software that could show it to you, well, then, you can be ahead of the game there.
Of course. You don't want to lose that money, especially for something like this, so you can just so easily figure out. You don't want to lose the money.
No, absolutely. So number 3, which again, counting down the number 2, you were saying those were almost neck and neck with each other. And one of them is going to be affecting a lot of people very soon. So I want to make sure that we have time to get to that. But number 3 is a little bit more in my neck of the woods because, we manage Amazon advertising for sellers. So number 3 is the advertising fees, but you had a really interesting breakdown of how you look at it. So I'd love for you to explain this.
So the advertising fees, this is going to apply for the private labels out there, for the resellers. I've seen some resellers have some little advertising, but mostly for private label. The way we do advertising is, we have the sponsored brand, which is going to include a few ASINs or SKUs. We have the just sponsored product, which is, is just you include the SKU and you just run a campaign. But then in the end, you have a SKU that is probably being advertised by multiple campaigns and multiple ads. But then you go back and each individual campaign, you can see the metrics for from Amazon. That's okay. But then how are you seeing in that child ASIN, how is that child ASIN doing with all that advertising in their sales? There is no compiled report that shows you, okay, like this child ASIN, it's like a shoe. Okay, this shoe in the black color, you're selling 200 a month. But how many of these 200 you're selling with advertising? How many of these 200 a month, if you take all your advertising and divide that by the 200 that you're selling in a month, how much advertising are you spending per sale in that month? You have to know. Because then if you know that you're making like $3 profit, still after all that advertising, you might decide to scale your advertising. And if you compile all of those reports and you see that per sale, you're actually losing money on advertising, then you might want to cut back on the advertising. The thing is, what we recommend with advertising, as long as you're able to scale profitably, we recommend that you scale with advertising because that also affects your organic sales and it also boosts your organic sales too. So you have to be able to know when you compile all those campaigns, how much you're spending per sale, and then you're able to see, okay, these 200 products, I can still spend, because I have $3 profit per product, I can still spend $600 more. Then you spend that in different campaigns, but you still have a $600 budget before you go head to head. And even if you go head to head first, then you can cut back on the advertising, but your organic sales are most likely going to stay. So we recommend this strategy, just scaling up until you're not profitable, then just scaling down a little on the advertising. But your organic ranking is still really high because you scaled that much. So this is, I think, really important.
You are speaking my language here. I love it. I am always someone. I don't want to hate on sellers because I recognize like all of this data and information, like we've been saying throughout this. It's very tedious. It's very hard to get for yourself. But there's so many brands that we'll consult with, especially on audits. It's like, oh, where are you putting the like? Well, this is my best seller, so therefore that's where all my ad spend is going. It's like, well, that's the best seller. Is that where you're making all your profits? Oftentimes, no. And so, like you're saying, is hey, instead of just looking at total account, because that's what a lot of sellers will do, because again, a lot easier to get that data. This is my profitability for my entire account, and I'm just going to trust that if I spend my ad dollars, I'm only looking at ad console, I'm only looking at maybe ACoS, or maybe I'm tracking total ACoS, but I'm not looking at it on that much more micro level. If you did, then you would say, oh, this is where I'm wasting money, this is where I'm making money, so let's take money from where I'm wasting it and put it towards what I'm making. And then, like you said, you can push for that growth, because I think, I don't know, as it gets more difficult to grow brands, it's really, to be honest, I did a presentation the other day. I said, honestly, growing sales on Amazon is easy. And everyone hears that and like chuckles. I'm like, no, actually growing sales is super easy. Just put more ad dollars behind it. It's being able to grow and maintain profits. That's the hard part. So you're advocating, hey, ads are a fantastic way for growth, which again, speaking my language here. And then on the flip side, but you need to know where to invest those ad dollars so you don't ruin, like we talked in the beginning, like make a bunch of sales and have nothing to show for it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and convenience, like you said, is everything. I mean, I see that some sellers, like the biggest ones, compile these reports once a month on Excel sheets, but then once a month is not cutting it. You want to be able to see these every single day. And convenience, because it's not convenient, you don't compile these reports or you don't take a look at them as much. But if you had just this screen that shows you what you need at the right moment, then you can, take action faster and just take the action. Because if you're not even compiling those once a month, which I know I could say probably 80% of the sellers don't compile this much data, you're never going to be able to see. and you're losing out on a lot of profits, or you're actually losing money in the end.
No, I am 100% with you. And that is, something that we've originally were trying to compile it. I mean, we had a whole team, like that was their entire job, was just to pull these reports and put them together, more frequently than monthly for sure. And then we started leveraging software because, like, yeah, that's where software shines, is through pulling data and compiling in a way that helps you take action quicker instead of you spending most of your time putting together a report and then being way too exhausted to take action on anything because you're just tired from putting it together.
Yep.
So yeah, so with that, I want to tackle these top two because you were saying that sellers, especially in Q4, if you're not paying attention to these things, one of these you were saying like, hey, there might even be brands who are going out of business if they don't pay attention to this, which is terrible. But also, honestly, I think you're correct. So number two on this list of 5 top things, that sellers are wasting profits on, you were saying that holiday storage fees and peak fulfillment fees is a huge
It's a
profit
huge
suck.
one. We're just about to start the last quarter, and they kick in, I think, October 14. So we just have like, by the time of this recording, we only have like 14 days before the peak fees start. And the
Yeah.
peak fees, especially in the US, are killing it. Like it's 300% more on the storage side. And this is only for the US. I don't, they can't do the same things in the EU marketplace. Like in the EU marketplace, Amazon is much more domicile, much more, business friendly. But in the US, they're killing us. The storage fees increase so much, and there's a catch. So the storage for October, we're just entering. You're going to be able to see after November 15 when it gets posted, when it gets settled. So by the time that we're selling in October, we're selling, but we don't really know what we're going to be charged in terms of the storage fees. And they have already tripled. So it's a really risky business. And by October, usually the sales are not that high for the Christmas, but you send in
Mhm.
all the inventory. So you have that bulk inventory that you want to sell for Christmas. You're being charged a triple storage and you don't know what you're being charged. So again, what we do here is a software. We know how much the storage fees are increasing. We take that amount. We know the algorithm to calculate that storage fees. We have all the data of your inventory. We calculate that ahead of time. We estimate that storage fee for you, which is going to be a really close estimate, so that every day when you do your sales and you get that storage fee added to your P&L, it's going to be a really good estimate. And then you can say, okay, hey, I'm starting to lose money, because
Mhm.
that's usually what happens. The last quarter, people think it's still a good time. I'm saying year by year, it's only becoming a good year for Amazon, not for the sellers, because back in the days, usually, the Amazon sellers used to make their whole year's profit in just the last quarter, but
Yeah.
Amazon knows this. So now with all the added fees, I think it's still better than the other quarters, but you have to be careful because the storage fee increase is not a joke. It's a really high increase that could make you potentially lose all the profits that you would have made in the Christmas season. So I think because of the timing of this video, the second most important thing that the sellers have to look out for right now is the peak season fees, which are just coming up right around the corner. And you absolutely need to be really careful on how to see these fees because they're going to be catching up to you afterwards.
No, I 100% agree with you. And unfortunately, what we're painting here is like a bleak picture. But I mean, the good news is what you're saying is like, hey, if you have the data, if you have information, you can be more aware of it. So we consult with brands or like our brands that we're advertising for. Advertising is a great way to increase sales for a product.
Mhm.
Well, if you know that you're going to hit with storage fees, we've done this with sellers before. They're like, hey, we know we're going to hit with storage fees. So we're happy to go a little bit, we're making less on the advertising. We're pushing more on the advertising. Yeah, are we not making as much profits overall? Technically speaking, but if you look at that long term picture, we'll
Mhm.
actually be making more profit because we are not going to get hit with that storage fees. Or another way to do it is pricing, right? If you lower price,
Mhm.
oftentimes that lowers profits, which if you have the long-term information and the data to make those database decisions, you could say, hey, look, I know I'm making less profit for a sale, but I don't want to get hit with long-term storage fees. I can't
Mhm.
afford this. And so therefore it makes sense to me. So really you need to look at when you're calculating profits, yes, you want to know what's happening right now, But what you're saying is like, hey, you need to look at that long-term picture. You
Hmm.
need to have the data to be able to take a look at that long-term picture. And then you can make much better calculated decisions instead of waiting for those storage fees to hit and then having to deal with the aftermath of it.
Yep. And don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of money to be made on Amazon. And the people who are seeing these fees correctly, who are looking at this picture correctly, they're still making huge profits. Like I said, like we have a customer, I speak with them in every convention. The last time I checked, like they had like a 75% net profit margin. They are killing it, and they have a ton of advertising. They have a ton of optimizations, but the product that they pick, the way that they advertise it, the way that they optimize these issues increases your profit margin, and that's what we're trying to achieve. It's not like we're all going to be going out of business. It's just that people who don't optimize for these are going to be going out of business. Amazon and online selling used to be like a mom and pop thing that you could do from home with your family. Now it's turning more towards a more technical kind of sales. The people who are more aware of what's going on are the ones that are going to be here in the long run. The guys that are just looking at the revenue numbers probably are not going to be staying with us for a long time.
Right. You said it very well, optimizing for, but the thing is, if you want to optimize, you got to know what you're optimizing
Yep.
for and what you're hedging against. So, like we said, these are the things that people don't pay attention to them. They're going to wake up to a very gnarly invoice or a couple months from now. And we're hoping to help you guys not have that happen to your account. So,
I
definitely.
think this is the perfect time. I mean, you still have time. Like 2 weeks is a good time to still take a look at this. You're not too late. Just take a deep dive on what the fees you're being charged, and it's not fun stuff. It's just numbers and details, but it's something that we gotta do.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, the number one way that a lot of sellers are getting hit on the bottom line is with placement fees.
Placement fees.
And I think this is one that's confusing the heck out of everyone. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah. So they have been recently introduced. First, people didn't even know what they were going to be charged, what they should select, what it was. Even myself, I had to go on Google and just, start Googling what the heck is the placement fee. We have this developer rep on Amazon. We emailed him saying like, what is this? He emailed back saying, I am not even sure. So, there are some fees that they bring in and they just dump it over to people. And even his approach is let's just wait and see what it is. So this one is a killer fee because it is costing you so much. I mean, all of these other fees that Amazon introduces, they're usually incremental.
Mm-hmm.
They slowly get you. But this fee is just, one huge bang. I see customers that have, 25% profit margin that got lowered to 15% profit margin just because of this. The placement fee is when you create the fulfillment order. And when we're talking about the Amazon screens, if you're not using a third-party software, it asks you, do you want the shipment to be optimized by Amazon and just send it to one location? Do you want it like in the middle and just send it to 3 locations? Or do you want to optimize it yourself and just ship it to 5 locations? I'm
Mm-hmm.
based in California. If you create a shipment with no optimized 5 shipment locations, it's probably going to assign you one to like Virginia or North Carolina, one to Florida, one to Texas, and the two other ones are going to be probably closer, one to Phoenix, and the other one is probably just the LAX area. But then the 3 shipments that you have to ship all the way to East are going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the people don't want to do this because, especially if you're not shipping that big truckloads and you're just shipping 2 pallets, 3 pallets, this is going to kill you. And you're probably going to get, just shipping codes from some companies, and you're going to see, okay, just 1 pallet is going to cost you probably $1,000 to ship, to some places. Then what happens? You go to Amazon optimized, but then it's charging you a fee, and usually you don't realize what that fee is. Sometimes, it calculates that fee, but when you're being charged, it's a little different. But then when you add these up, you have options. Either you have to compile all your shipments and not do little shipments and just do one big shipment, but then you have to have more money because a lot of the people they just buy little, they ship it, they when they get another shipment, they just ship it. You have to keep your inventory in Amazon warehouses, then when it gets bigger you ship it off. or you have to have more money, you have to purchase more products. Both ways, it's going to be harder for you. Or you just take the Amazon optimized shipment option, you ship it the way you used to ship, and you just ship it to 1 or 3 locations that are close to you. But then you're probably getting charged a few $1,000s at the end of the month for just the placement fees. And this is, of course, by your size, but an average seller that has like $200,000 of revenue a month is probably getting, $10,000, $12,000 of placement fees being charged to them, which is by percentage at
Significant.
least 5% of the revenue. So this is a killer fee. This has been recently introduced. And again, Amazon likes to do this. So this placement fee, you're charged after the shipment is cleared and closed. So the shipment that you do right now, by the time you see it in your settlement, it's probably 1 or 2 months down the road.
Mm.
This is also, a delayed thing that hits you, and it's a really big fee. I think this is the most important fee of all, because optimizing this is the most important thing. Let me tell you about unofficial solution. Amazon is still trying to end this, but by the time of today, it still works. If you use third-party shipping software, which is something we don't provide, third-party fulfillment creation software, you're able to create the shipment and then delete some products of that shipment. So you let it optimize for 5 shipments. So it takes you to Florida, to Texas, to North Carolina, but then you delete all the items in that Florida shipment until you have one small item. So maybe you used to asks for you to ship 30 SKUs to Florida, but you delete 29 of them, and then you only have to ship one SKU, and you leave the smallest one in that shipment. So if it's just, the last customer I spoke with was shipping erasers as the last SKU. So
Mm.
he has all these big items. He erases that from the shipment. He only has to ship an eraser, and then he just prepares a small UPS box, ship that off. And the biggest shipments, he optimizes it for the Phoenix and the California locations, which are closer
Mm.
to me and to his business. And that's how you can optimize it. And you can get zero placement fees instead of tens or thousands of dollars. You can get zero. You have to use a third party shipping software. And by this time, it still works. I recommend that people use it, but hopefully not enough people use it that they leave the loophole open. Uh, so
Yeah. So you were saying that this needs to be done through the API. You can't do it because there are certain things where if you have access to the API, you're making changes via the
yep.
API, which is what software does, pulls and pushes information. So there's some things you can get away with, not get away with, but there are certain access points that you're able to do that if you're inside Seller Central, one, you might just not have access to that data, or you don't have access to whatever thing, or they block you from doing it.
Yeah, this is like the golden egg at the end of this podcast, probably. If you start using a third-party shipping software, and before I heard this, I didn't like, because
Mm-hmm.
usually the API is the same thing as Amazon, what
Right.
Amazon provides in the Seller Center, but in this term it's different. If you don't use the API, you don't get an option to do any of this, because in the Seller Central screens, once you work the shipment, it's fixed. You can only increase 10% of the quantities. But if you use a third-party shipping software, the API allows more action on this, and you're able to ditch the placement fees completely, $0. And
Mm.
let me tell you an example. Like again, one friend of mine who has a business, and they're obviously using our software, and we were looking at their data. They were getting charged $13,000 of placement fees a month,
Oh,
and they
wow.
only got it charged 2 months, because after that they fixed it, came to this solution, and now they're only getting charged $0. So
Mm.
just making you $13,000 just by using another software, just at the end of this podcast. So this is really important. I think this fee alone is probably going to put a lot of businesses out of work, because it's such a huge fee, and it is probably detrimental to some businesses because they have to ship big products, and when they ship it to these kind of really far away warehouses, it is costing them a lot of money. And when they do the Amazon optimized shipping, they don't have that enough profit margin to be able to
Mm.
pay that placement fee. And I think this is a really big one. I think this is the biggest one of all right now.
I'm with you on that. I think not only is it a huge fee, like you were saying, Amazon typically rolls these out, they'll increase a little here, increase a little there. Like you said, it was almost like this huge blow to the
Yeah.
bottom line. So there's that aspect of it, but not only is it a very, very large fee that's been added, to what we're already paying to sell, it's another one that's like very confusing. So in terms of optimizing it, when you don't understand something, like we were saying with the software and being able to see things, it's very hard to understand it, track it, figure out how to fix it if you don't really know what's going on in the first place. So I really appreciate your breakdowns, and also I hope that the API loophole is not closed. Well, definitely you
And
heard it
again,
here
this
first.
is only in the US. The European
Got it.
marketplace does not have any placement fees. They're getting a jacked up holiday pricing, but not as
Mhm.
much as us. The US the US sellers, you have to beware.
Yeah, unfortunately, Amazon US is probably one of the largest opportunities in terms of just sales volume. Like a
Of
lot of
course.
times it's not the same volumes, but on top of that, Amazon typically rolls out more complicated things and more fees and all of these things that go into selling in the US market. So I appreciate the breakdown you've given us today. You've given sellers a lot to think of. And as we've been plugging software solutions, but honestly, I am with you going through trying to like manually struggle through creating reports myself, trying to figure out how to calculate everything correctly, because if somebody copies something wrong, puts something in the wrong place, forgot to drag down the formula, like there's so many things that can go wrong with a manual approach. So now that we have kind of shifted over to using some software solutions ourselves for analytics, I've seen the light. I'm not a totally 100% manual girl anymore, although there's still some stuff I think manual is better. When it comes to some optimizations and push things. But when it comes to data analysis, 100% software shines here. So if somebody's listening into this, they're like, this is great. I don't want to have to figure all of this out on my own. I would love someone to help me calculate it for me. How can someone get a hold of you?
You can just email me at salman.akinci@Profit Cyclops. You can go to our website, profitcyclops.com. We have a live chat, which is going to connect you to someone inside the US. It could probably be me or someone else, whoever is available at that moment. But feel free to email me. Come to the conventions. We're joining all of them. Next month, we're going to be joining Amazon Innovate. We join Prosper, Proven Conference, all of those conferences. If you're coming to a conference in the US, you're probably going to meet me there. So come talk to me. If you have any questions, if you want to learn about anything else, I'm always available.
So you can check for those links in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, you're going to love this one on how to run more profitable Amazon ads.